Welcome to the Behind the Board on grab, trim, and group functions. We're going to start this one out by using the grabber tool to move our pick slide from where it is to where it's supposed to be. It's kind of in the middle of nowhere now. It just happens, and then the song starts. Take a listen. All right, where we want the pick slide to be is right around in this area here, but we want it to end exactly where this starts. So what we're going to do is zoom in here with T, zoom in type, and we see we're starting pretty much on the grid here, but let's get real tight to it till we think we're perfect. We're going to click it. We're going to go over to this menu up here next to bars and beats. Click that for us. Go down to markers. Enable our marker option. Here our marker option just appeared. I want you to press the plus button, and we're going to call that pick slide. All right, so now we know exactly where we want that to be. So let's zoom back out, and we'll start moving towards it. We're going to be in slip mode for this. We're going to grab our grabber tool right up here, and we're starting to pull it over towards where it should be. So grab it, start pulling it over, let it go. We're not there yet. Let's do a little more. It's getting close, it's getting close. It's real close now. So let's zoom back in. See how it zooms in to the top of it rather than to the bottom of it, the bottom being the end of it, and that's kind of what we want to look at. So we're going to go back up here. I'm going to click our other tool or select a tool here. We're going to click where we want to be looking at and zoom in a little more. Okay, now let's go back to our grabber tool and adjust. So we want to go to the left a little. There we are. We got it. Zoom in a little more. No, we're perfect. But it's about perfect. Zoom our way back out. And let's listen to what we did. Perfect. That's what the grabber tool is good for. It's fantastic at that. Let me show you a few limitations of it that you'll probably run into real quick if you're doing this. I'm going to bring it back out of here, back to where we had it. Just undoing my way back with Command Z. Okay. Let's take a look at what the grabber tool will do if we're in grid mode. So click on our grid mode here. We can see that we're in quarter note grid. And we'll click our grabber tool. Now the beginning of this hit right here where the beginning of it didn't start yet, really the transient happened here, but it has a little space in before it, that's going to be locked onto the grid. So we won't be able to move it wherever we want. The beginning there is going to get locked to the grid. So we'll move it over, and you'll see it locked right to the grid. We don't want that to be happening. Let's undo that, because we're more focused about where it ends, which is on a grid right now, than where it begins. So there's a different grid mode called relative grid, or you could go ahead and click this again. It'll turn red, turn into relative grid, a little red purplish looking thing. Now, as I move over, it's going to keep this sound where it is within the grid. So this is happening a little bit before the grid line. It should now, if I move it over, happen a little bit before this next grid line. Perfect, that's what we're looking for. So since we're ending on time, let's place it again. We'll zoom out. We'll move it over. Move it over one more, it looks like. And we're good there too. So that's why you don't want to be in grid mode too much when you're doing this. You need to know the difference between relative grid and regular grid. You'll be in regular grid very often, relative grid very rarely, but it does come up sometimes just like that. All right, next thing I want to do is work on editing a little bit with you. Let's go back to our edit tool here, selector. Let's zoom out one more. Okay, let's take a look at editing up these two guitars. We can either drag here and make a cut. Say we press delete to make our cut. Or we can make a group and we don't have to drag over anymore. it'll just drag all together. So let's make a group out of these as. What you want to do is select your first track, go down to groups down here, hit the down arrow, make a new group. Okay, see it says currently in the group rhythm guitar, available, click lead guitar, pick slides. We want the 2 guitars, we're going to leave the pick slide out of it, so I click that one, I add it to it. Same thing can happen if you want to remove something. So I wanted to remove that, but I don't really want to remove that, so we'll put that back. Let's name this guitar group. All right, perfect. All right, so now we have a guitar group, and look what happens when I cut something. So we use together, I don't have to go down and pick out both of them. It doesn't matter where I am. It will cut both of them together at all times. That also works for our mutes and our solos. So if this is playing back, and I want to mute it, I can mute it. If another area is playing back with something else on it, like this pick slide, and I don't want to hear that, I only want to hear these 2 guitars. Put a solo. All right, so that's how groups work, and that's where they get you. Now, we just made a bunch of cuts that we really shouldn't have made. We don't need to make these, so we're going to learn about the trim tool, and that's how we're going to get these cuts back. We're going to get rid of these cuts, really. So here's the trim tool right up here. Click that. You can see what our trim tool looks like. And since we are in a group right now, both of these will be trimmed at the same time. What I'm going to do is go from the right to from the left to the right, so that we can replace all of the audio that we got rid of. Now it's all back. So we'll go back to our other tool. Great. The trim tool is going to come in real handy, especially when you run into situations like this down here with our pick slide that we started with. Let's zoom in on that. So our pick slide over here is definitely starting before the grit. So what if I just wanted to cut it? So I highlight it, press delete, and cut it. Fantastic. Let's listen back. Okay, so we just did an edit, and our client came in and said, oh, it sounds abrupt and unnatural. I liked it how I played it, and now it's not that way anymore. He's all upset. So let's fix it for him. We're going to go up to our trim tool, grab it, go down to the track we're working on, and just drag it to the left. Now it's back, just the way they like it. So the trim tool will come in handy, as well as grouping. And everything we discussed in this video. This is the basics, and this is the core of it. So watch this a few times, we'll learn these things, and we'll move on to the next one. Thanks, guys.